Today's topic is on marriage, definition and forms of marriage. First, let us have the introduction. The institution of marriage, quite like that of the family, is universal. There cannot be a family without marriage. Thomas Helland Erickson very rightly says that marriage is essential for human survival. Women are important because it is they who procreate children, men do not. Similarly, women cannot procreate without alliance with men. Marriage remains an alliance, whatever may be the results. This alliance can be for a lifetime or it may be short-lived. But in all situations, there are some alliance, some understanding, and some sharing between those who give their daughter or receive a bride. In Indian society, we find several marriage alliances established for several purposes between royal families. In medieval India, a treaty was signed or peace was bought by entering into a marriage. The Rajputs gave their daughters in marriage to the Mughals. Marriage, therefore, is an exchange of male and female. It is an alliance, a contract. Next, we have the definitions of marriage. A number of anthropologists have struggled to formulate a definition of marriage that would apply to all human societies. According to Erickson, whether or not persons choose their spouses, marriage is very commonly perceived as a relationship between groups, not primarily between individuals. Erickson conducts a stock taking of the ethnographic atlas of world communities and finds that spouses are chosen between groups, clans, and communities. It is more a concern of the group and very little of the individuals. His survey shows polyandry occurs only 4 times. It is a rare kind of marriage. So is the case of polygyny. He further argues that the marriage institution, almost in all the cases, is a concern not of individuals but of groups. In village India, Iravati Karve informs that the daughter-in-law of a family traditionally becomes the daughter-in-law of the whole village. She is obliged to observe parda when she is at public places, and when son-in-law comes to his wife's village, the women observe parda. Thus, marriage in India binds a man not only with the kin of the in-laws, but also the whole caste and the village. Westermarck, in his book entitled A Short History of Human Marriage, devotes considerable space to Hindu marriage and writes that marriage is a relation of one or more men and women which is recognized by the custom or law and involves certain rights and duties, both in the case of the parties entering the union and in the case of children born of it. Yet another definition of marriage is given by D.N. Majumdar and T.N. Madan in their book An Introduction to Social Anthropology. According to them, marriage ensures a biological satisfaction, that of sex, and a psychological satisfaction, that of having children, on individual plan, and on the wider collective plan, it ensures a twofold survival, that of the group and its culture. P.N. Prabha, who dwells elaborately on Hindu social institutions, says that marriage among Hindus is for dharma, procreation, and rati, that is sex. It is the duty of a Hindu to enter into marriage. There is no salvation without marriage. However, Hindu Sastrakaras give precedence to religion over procreation and sex. Next, we have the forms of marriage. Anthropologists have widely discussed the forms of marriage. Sometimes it is termed as acquiring a mate. These forms of marriage are: first, monogamy, and second, polygamy. We shall now discuss the different forms of marriage found in different societies. First, we have monogamy. Under monogamy, one man marries one woman. Monogamy seems to be the earliest form of marriage, though its evolution has been controversial. Some argues that in the earlier periods of history, there was promiscuity followed by matriarchal and patriarchal forms of marriage. But there is also enough evidence to suggest that before the emergence of agriculture, people of subsistence economy had monogamous marriage. If we look at the present popular form of marriage, it could be safely said that all over the world, monogamy is the most favorite form of marriage. Even those who practice polygamy, polygyny, and polyandry are returning to monogamy. In all cases, it consists of husband, wife, and unmarried children. According to Malinowski, monogamy has been and will remain the only true type of marriage. Next, we have polygamy. Though popularly polygamy is understood to mean marriage with two or more women, it properly designates marriage of either a man or woman with more than one mate. What is commonly reckoned as polygamy is accurately called polygyny. In addition, it must be considered as the union of a group of men with a group of women, a custom known as group marriage. Next, we have polygyny. Under this system, one man has two or more wives at a time. Polygyny is generally called polygamy, but polygamy includes both polyandry and polygyny. Introducing this form of marriage, Robert H. Louis, in his book Primitive Society, observes that polygyny is one of those dangerous catchwords that required careful scrutiny, lest there result a total misunderstanding of the conditions it is meant to characterize. In every human society, the number of male and of female individuals born is approximately equal. Hence, in order to have either polygyny or polyandry as a fairly common practice, it is obviously necessary that some non-biological factor should disturb the natural ratio. He says that nature has ordained human procreation in such a way that the ratio of males and females in a society remains more or less equal. Polygyny and polyandry are the cultural constructs made by the society. If we look at the history, we would know that In simple food-gathering economies, polygyny was rare, though it was permissible. Even in the advanced food-gathering also, they did not go for a second wife. The practice of polygyny is found among the Eskimos. Eskimos work as hunters of the fish in the Arctic Sea. The life of the fisherman is quite risky. This reduces the male population. Thus, polygyny became arithmetically possible among them. This form of marriage is also found in many parts of Africa. The Indian scene is not very different from that of Africa. Here too, tribal groups also practice polygyny. The monarchs or rulers in our country also had bands of wives in their palaces. In Hindu mythology, Dasharatha of Ramayana had 3 wives. The rulers of the princely states also had a rich tradition of polygyny. Very clearly, polygyny has been the true idiom of the rich class. It was assumed that polygyny gives status to a man. Today, however, polygyny is on the way to extinction. However, it should be made clear that even a tribal community which is theoretically polygynous, majority of members do not practice polygyny. It is empirically the privilege of very few people. Next, we have polyandry. Admittedly, the practice of polyandry has been rare. Claims for its presence suggest that less than 1% of the people of the world's tribes or other practically independent units have permitted it. John Lewis had provided a definition of polyandry. According to him, it is a marriage in which a woman can have more than one husband at the same time. Polyandry has been found in a small number of societies. It has been reported, for example, in simple food-gathering societies like the Wahuma tribals of East Africa and among the tribal groups of Tibet and Toda, South India. Among the Wahumas, polyandry is an altogether unique phenomenon. When a man is too poor to buy a wife alone, he is assisted by his brothers and they share the marital rights until the woman's pregnancy, when they become his exclusive prerogative. There is a wide prevalence of polyandry among the Todas of Nilgiris. Among the Todas, when a man marries a woman, it is understood that she automatically becomes the wife of his brothers, who normally live together. Even a brother born afterwards will be regarded as sharing his elder brother's rights. In such cases of fraternal polyandry, no dispute ever arises among the husbands. When the wife becomes pregnant, the eldest of the husband performs a ceremony with a bow and arrow by which legal fatherhood is conventionally established in this tribe. But all the brothers are reckoned to be the child's fathers. The situation becomes more complicated when a woman weds several men who are not brothers and who, as may happen, live in different villages. This is non-fraternal polyandry. The last form of marriage is group marriage. Another form of marriage called group marriage is also mentioned in the study of primitive marriage systems. Lewis says that the term marriage, as we understand it by customary definition, if applied, there is hardly something of the kind of group marriage. He says what we term group marriage is actually sexual communism. In each society, besides the tradition of monogamy, polygyny, and polyandry, there are instances of premarital and extramarital sex relations. These sex relations could be loosely called group marriage. On the basis of inferences drawn by Louis and other social anthropologists, particularly Rivers, Morgan, etc., it can be said that the popular textbooks of social anthropology are wrong to refer to group marriage as a form of marriage. It has also been stated in categorical terms that there has never been and nowhere is there any incidence of group marriage among Indian tribes. Marriage is not a personal affair. It is not just an institution for the fulfillment of biological needs. It is a social alliance par excellence. Whatever may be the kind of society, it has some inbuilt mechanism for providing legitimacy to the sexual needs. However, the functions that marriage institution performs have different priorities in different societies.